Joining me now is Richard Mccallum, who's the CEO of UK IBC, which is UK India Business Council. Thank you, Mr. Mccallum, for speaking to NDTV. Both UK and India have announced their commitment to improve trade relations between the two countries. India, in fact, is the fifth and UK is the sixth largest economy of the world. What can be the most immediate and actionable strategies needed to energize the bilateral partnership? And at the center of this, of course, is the MSMEs, and 63% of UK firms in India are micro, small, medium-sized entrepreneurs. So what do British firms expect from Budget 2025?
Good. Thank you for having me on. Well, I think the first thing to say is the UK is already heavily invested in India. There's about 630 British companies here in India with annual revenues of something like £51 billion. And India is obviously hugely invested in the UK as well. You know, there's about 971 Indian companies in the UK with a turnover of close to £70 billion. So that investment relationship is very strong already. And the trade relationship is good too. Total trade is about 42 billion, up about 9% year on year. So it's a good story, but of course we shouldn't be satisfied with it. India's powering ahead towards Viksit Bharat 2047, and we've got the FTA talks, we hope, resuming very soon. India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. You know, what we'd like to see, what our members would like to see from the budget is to set out a vision for manufacturing that's based on a level playing field, which allows international companies to access the full benefits of India's FDI liberalization. We want to see more research and innovation landscape, which leverages digital solutions for stimulated learning, for example, in healthcare. We'd like, of course, to see continued streamlining of the tax administration, which reduces the compliance burden for companies. And we would like the government to prioritize policies and incentives that facilitate more increased adoption, of energy, clean energy and energy infrastructure.
Right. Also, Mr. Mccallum, we know that both India and UK saw elections last year, and there's a lot being talked about UK-India defense collaboration, reforming governance, technology, also other areas of growth such as pharmaceuticals, pandemic preparedness, and 15 UK firms, in fact, in India recorded triple-digit revenue growth also this year. There are also certain sectors like education, technology, infrastructure that are seeing a lot of UK investments. What are the sectors that the budget should be looking at boosting so that there is impetus growth, also jobs, and also some sense of promotion of innovation?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, what our members want to see, I mean, India's had a remarkable political stability in the recent term, and we've also seen a really impressive reform agenda from the government. I mean, the progress that this government's made to create an ecosystem which stimulates entrepreneurship, innovation, is incredible. And, you know, the business-minded reforms in terms of digitization and tax and GST and so on have been very, very impressive. So what our members want to see is continued reform which improves the ease of doing business landscape in this country. And, you know, they're also extremely focused on technology collaboration between India and the UK. So reforms that can help stimulate that as well would be welcome.
Sure. Also, Mr. Mccallum, there's good news that Britain's Secretary of Business, Jonathan Reynolds, has also said that he could be visiting India next month with a specific focus on finalizing the free trade agreement negotiations as part of UK government's also collaborative efforts with India. Indian government has also been optimistic in this regard. When are we expecting the FTA talks to resume, and would these agreements in fact provide greater market access to Indian goods and services? And can you also tell us how will they benefit both countries?
Yeah, good question. I always say that when the fifth and sixth largest economies in the world want to do an FTA, it's important to take the time to get that right. At the same time, for quite legitimate reasons, it has been quite a protracted process, and, you know, business wants to see this deal closed. I think 2025 is the year when we will either do a deal or both sides will quickly agree that we can't and move on. But I think it's more likely that we will have a deal this year. There are very positive signs. At the G20 last year, our prime ministers agreed to restart talks. And just yesterday, the business secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, announced that he would be coming to India to hold those talks at the end of February. in New Delhi. So that's very positive. I mean, we've had 13 rounds of negotiation now. A substantial number of chapters have seen progress and been closed. From my conversations with officials at both sides, I'm reassured that there is political will on both sides to get this deal over the line. Our members want to see things like a modest reduction in tariffs in certain range of sectors, including alcoholic spirits, food, automotive, progress on non-tariff barriers, and also progress on investor protection. But, you know, I think it's really important to think of this not as the end of something, but as the beginning of something. So it's like the floor to the relationship is not the ceiling of the relationship. And I think it's very important to get it done so that we can see and build on momentum and progression in this relationship.
Also, Mr. Mccallum, one of the sticking points many say is negotiations around visa provisions for Indian professionals, and also the other is the one related to environment and labour. UK businesses, of course, are playing a supportive role in India's net zero goals by 2070, also sustainable goals. But how optimistic are you of both sides striking a balance that satisfies not just their domestic politics, but also the furthering ties between the two countries?
Yeah, they're both good questions. I mean, I think in terms of the visas, you know, this is already a very good story. I mean, India receives, I think, the majority of the visas that are issued by the UK, whether they're visit visas or tourist or student visas or worker visas. Actually, I think the real need there is for more UK students to come to India. We need to do a lot more to encourage young professionals and students to experience India, because you know, India is the most exciting story in the world right now, the most exciting economic story in the world. And we want more of our young people to experience that and understand what it's like to work here, what the business culture feels like, and take that back into their careers back in the UK.
It's a lot to look forward to. Thank you, Mr. Mccallum, for speaking to NDTV.